Good morning and welcome into the show. It is Daniel Workman coming to you live from the Dreamadginate Sports Studios. Welcome into the show. Thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday morning. We always appreciate the views, the support, the feedback, as always. You can watch the show on Bega TV, or you can watch it on DanielWorkman.com, Facebook.com/WRKMN, on Twitter as well. We have a variety of ways to watch the show, to follow the show, and we appreciate all of the support. I want to start off the show with a little bit of a story. I hope you had a great weekend. My weekend was really good, but it was a little hectic and a little busy. And part of the reason why it was that way was because my wife and I were out in Southern California, and we had gone out because I was going to cover the inaugural match for the San Diego Loyal hosting Las Vegas Lights for the season opener of the USL Championship. And this was the first ever match for San Diego, and they were at home hosting Las Vegas Lights. And so flew out to cover the match, and to kind of get a good look at what was going on in San Diego. And a friend of the show, a friend of mine, Eric Winalda, is the head coach, the manager of Las Vegas Lights, and so went out to see him and his staff, and as well to kind of see what's going on as he heads into season 2 as the man in charge of Las Vegas. And it was going to be a great weekend. Everything was lined up for it to be a great weekend. And so, we fly out on Thursday night, and we get out there and, wake up on Friday morning to the news that some friends of ours had been on a trip to Israel and had gotten caught up in all of this coronavirus stuff going on around the world. And immediately reached out to them and started kind of checking on them to kind of see what was going on and how they were doing. And fortunately, at the time, everything was still okay. They had gotten caught up in a quarantine and were trying to figure out how long they were going to be essentially not held hostage, but, trapped over there in the Bethlehem area of the Palestinian territory. And as we were kind of processing all that and checking on our friends, we started thinking about our son. Our oldest son had been away in Amsterdam for about a month at this point, doing some soccer training and playing. And so, we are always kind of keeping tabs on the situation. Well, when this coronavirus situation kind of hit home with some friends of ours getting caught up in it on their trip to Israel, we really started, having this conversation about, not necessarily concerned with, the health and well-being of our son, but more about access. Could we get him home with the way things are trending over in Europe, Italy having issues trying to contain the outbreak there. And so we just kind of went back and forth on what would be the wise thing to do in this situation and trying to figure out what the options were. And so in doing that, we reached out to our son and just had a conversation with him about, what's going on there? What are you hearing? What is your schedule like, et cetera, et cetera. And in that, we, came to this conclusion on Saturday before the match that the best thing to do at this point to try to figure out, best course of action was to reach out to Delta. Delta's, my preferred airline. I love Delta. As a matter of fact, my wife calls me a Delta snob. I love Delta. And so we reached out to Delta and talked to an agent there about our situation, and we talked to them about, our son and what was going on there. And in all of that, came to, a decision after speaking with the agent at Delta that maybe trying to find out the options to bring him home might be the best course of action. And after speaking with the agent, she was able to fully refund all of our trip over in April to bring him back, and at the same time was able to work on some options to get him home sooner. And so she said, would you like him home tomorrow? And I said to my wife, she can get him home tomorrow. And so we started talking with the agent about, how much would that be and all of that. And so at the same time that we're figuring this out, I also am dealing with the fact that we're in Southern California. We're not home. And so, if he flies back tomorrow, somebody has to be at the airport to pick him up. So I get back on the line with the agent, and I just said, hey, look, we're flying into a different airport than what he's originally scheduled to fly into. Would it be possible to reroute him to the same airport? And so we were able to find a flight from Amsterdam through a new route to the same airport where we were going to land, and find a flight that would land 3 minutes after ours. And she was able to get all of that lined up for us. And on top of that, we even got a partial refund of his trip, full refund of ours. It was incredible. And so we get on the phone and, with our son and said, hey, look, we just got off the phone with Delta, and they have really gone over and above to help us out and to help you out. Our big concern here is access. What happens if they shut everything down? Can we get to you? Can we get you back to us? And so pack your bags. In less than 12 hours, you're getting on an airplane and flying home. And of course, he was a little disappointed that he was having to leave so early, but he understood and took it like a champ. But it was definitely a whirlwind of about 2 hours going through all of this and kind of sorting out, what would be the best course of action. What could we do with all of the stuff taking place around the world and trying to get him home? And Delta just went over and above to get him home. And we ended up landing in at the airport, and he actually beat us by 10 minutes. Both of our flights were early, but his was super early, and so he beat us by about 10 minutes, and was sitting at the gate waiting on us to come and pick him up as he had flown back as an unaccompanied minor, and so there he was sitting there. And so less than 24 hours later, here's a picture of me and my son at the airport, back in the States, back with us. And I just can't say enough thank yous to Delta Airlines and all of their agents and support who helped us along this way. And like I said, in less than 12 hours, he was on a plane, and by the end of Sunday night, he was back on American soil and on his way home with us. It was an incredible, 24, 36 hours. And that's not even taking into the match. We'll get to that later in the show. That was just trying to get some logistics sorted out so that we could get our son home safely. So it was a great weekend. It was a busy weekend, like I said, but big thank you to Delta Airlines in helping us out with all of that. So, this is my plug for Delta. They are not a sponsor of the show, but they have done us and our family a major service in this regard, and we appreciate it completely. In other news, Vegas, San Diego, wow, what a weekend. We were able to get out and check the match out and really kind of look at, what was going on, what was, the setup there. There was just a lot of good things we were able to see at the match, and definitely felt like the group there that's kind of heading up San Diego have done a really good job. It came across as, a really, professional setup in the way that they, have really kind of gone in and taken this University of San Diego stadium and really turned it into a good match day environment for the USL Championship and for the San Diego Loyal. It was a sold out capacity crowd. It was about 6,100, I think, is what they announced. It was a really good environment. I would encourage you, if you're in Southern California or if you're ever out in the San Diego area and the Loyal are playing, I would go and take in a match. It was a good environment. It was a good crowd. There had a lot of food vendors and just a really good setup there. The stadium itself already naturally kind of lended itself to having a good match day environment. And so it was a good vibe. I mean, to bring your family, if it's like you're a young adult or a college student, to come and hang out, it was great. There was a really good supporter section at the end behind the goal. It was, they were jumping up and down, having a good time throughout the match. You really got to see a really good microcosm of what it is to have a good soccer crowd, regardless of whether it's MLS, the USL Championship, or any other league. It was a good level and good crowd, and I really felt like they did a good job all the way around. The media access and availability was fantastic. Got to go out on the field, and if you're watching this, you can see some of our clips that we shot while we were there, and able to kind of take in the whole setup. It was a really really good night. The action on the field was a little back and forth in the very beginning. I think early season jitters, just both teams trying to fill each other out. But early on, a few minutes in, there was just an amazing goal by Vegas from about probably 25 yards out, and could be goal of the year for the USL. It was that good of a goal, and Vegas went up 1-0 early, and really you could tell they were trying to put some pressure on on San Diego. New team, first time ever coach in Landon Donovan to really try to force them into an uncomfortable situation, see how they would respond. San Diego, to be honest, struggled with that in the beginning. They were having a difficult time really, getting a foothold in the game. And the one time that they were able to come down and, keep the ball in an attacking area, there was two Las Vegas Lights players had gone up for a header, kind of hit heads and went down, and the play should have been stopped at that moment. The referee had the whistle to his mouth. There was no immediate action, and it should have been blown at that point. It wasn't blown, and probably about 5-10 seconds later, San Diego essentially playing, two men up, because those two men were down in the box. Chances, they had a lot of chances. They hit the post and had a bunch of other chances to put it away, and were unable to do so. And the match ended in a 1-1 draw. But I felt like overall it was a really good first night for San Diego, and I felt like it was also a first night of the season for Las Vegas, and building off of what they did last year. This team, if you saw any of Las Vegas Lights last year versus this year in this match, you would have noticed a difference. Last year, the team was much slower in moving the ball. There was a lot of ball possession, but it was not really probing. It was not really moving quickly, and they were not getting a ton of chances to score, and were often getting caught on the counter. They would lose possession and they were opened up, and things just weren't quite clicking the way I think Eric and his staff were hoping they would. This year, they went into it with a plan of being a little bit faster in their possession and really moving and probing. That seemed to be something that was, I don't know if this goes into their future matches, but into the San Diego match was certainly something that they were trying to do, which was to be very, I'm sure that the players and the staff of Vegas, like I said, feel a little bit undone by the San Diego goal, and they also had a ton of chances that they didn't put away, and they're going to be a little, I'm sure disappointed with that. But overall, they have to feel pretty good about the way they went on the road and really, were the protagonists in the match and forced the play into the way that they wanted the game to go, and were able to come out with a result, and a really good result to open the season. San Diego, in looking at the setup there, to me, watching this, it was kind of clear to see that, Landon Donovan as a head coach and his team in the setup, it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. And, not to say it's going to be a bad season or anything like that. Just watching the team play, it seemed as though they had a plan, but the adjustments on the fly never really materialized. Now, part of that could be the way Vegas was coming at them, but the other part of it just seemed to be that there weren't quite enough, adjustments made in the heat of the moment to really give San Diego, Landon and his staff, and I'm looking at what we did and what we learned, that would be an area that I would focus on is let's go in with our game plan. Let's make sure that we're trying to execute what we're trying to do as our plan A better, but also have, something that we can turn to or some adjustments that we can prepare for if we see X or Y or Z happening. And I think that's just coaching. That's just in time. there's no substitution for experience. And so Landon, I think, is going to get a lot of experience this year in that department, and it'll be key to see how he and his staff handle those moments, and that will ultimately go a long way in determining the playoff chances of San Diego going forward in the USL Championship in their inaugural season. But overall, I'm telling you, if all of our soccer clubs in this country could launch with the setup that San Diego had, we would go a long way into having a healthy system of leagues with viable clubs all over this country. As a matter of fact, I would actually say this, that what San Diego did and what Las Vegas has done a couple of years ago, what New Mexico United did last year, and others who in similar fashion, something we see across this country, then I think that's really bad news for Major League Soccer, because it tells the public that Major League Soccer is not necessary for the growth and well-being of the sport in all areas of this country. It also means you don't need Don Garber's approval or signature or Major League Soccer itself to have viable professional soccer in your neighborhood. And so that I think that is certainly something the USL is wanting to see, and I think other clubs and leagues are wanting to see as well. And I think what San Diego rolled out this weekend went a long way in that process as well. And if others can do the same, I think that's good news for American soccer at large. To see that play out across this country is really good. And so if you are a club and you're trying to figure things out, I would reach out to some of those clubs, the Chattanoogas, the Detroits, the New Mexico Uniteds, the Las Vegas Lights, the San Diego Loyal, and lean into what they've done and lessons they've learned, and then figure out how that might fit with what you're trying to do in your community, because we're better when all of these clubs around the country are really able to reach into their communities and build something nice and something special and something lasting that really connects with their community. San Diego were able, as the match itself and the support from the community. So kudos go to everybody involved in San Diego. They were great hosts. And it was a great night, and really appreciate it, being able to be there and take all of that in and really get to see what's going on there in San Diego. After the match, we were on the field and kind of taking in some of the post-game festivities and things like that, and we were able to catch up with Eric Winalda, and he invited us back to the locker room for his post-game speech, and kind of go a little bit behind the scenes and see some of the things that go on at a USL Championship match and at a Vegas match specifically, and so we were able to do that and take that in, and so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a preview of a clip for Vega TV of this post-match speech and how Vegas felt at looking at the way the match played out.
Excuse me, is everybody here? Look, how do we feel about tonight? Good. Feel good. You know what? And remember that a nickname was Read it up. Let's go. Keep it like this.
So that was the behind the scenes of how Vegas felt after the match, and big thanks to Eric to inviting us back to capture that moment and really get a look behind the scenes. That's some of the kind of things that we like to do, is give you a different look to things going on, and that was one of them. And so we appreciate Eric and his staff and his players welcoming us in for that post-match moment. And you could tell the team as well as Eric felt really good about the result in the night, and so we'll see how all of that continues to play out and transpire. But it was a good night overall, and we really enjoyed being there. Our sponsor this half hour is Ductic Brand, and speaking of things to enjoy, I would hope that you enjoy going on ducticbrand.com to shop. DUKTIG brand.com. They are the makers of journals and notebooks. If you're a coach, if you're a player, if you're a goalkeeper. In 12 hours, and it was great work by them. And part of that weekend also, as we were talking about, was being out in San Diego in Southern California to take in the San Diego Las Vegas USL Championship opener. And kind of part of the reason why we felt the necessity to bring our son home was, had nothing to do really with the medical piece of this. He was fine. He was in, there was no reason to be concerned at all, and we were not panicked in any way about that. Our main concern was what happens as a response to governments being proactive in trying to, eliminate or reduce the spread of the virus. What happens to access? This was our concern, knowing that he wasn't due back in the country until middle of April. We were just like, how long do we wait? Do we continue to monitor? And in light of that, I don't know if you saw this, but Italy is basically shut down. I'm not just talking about from a footballing perspective. I'm saying the country has pretty much just shut down. Quarantines, there's just no in and out. I mean, trying to get a handle on this thing. In other countries have been proactive about this too, in terms of gathering of large crowds, etc. And it's only natural that so a lot of these dominoes are beginning to fall as governments, federations, leagues, clubs are, working together to try to figure out the best path forward for the competitions, for the health, safety, and well-being of their staff and their players and their supporters. And so it's going to be an interesting next few weeks as these things continue to be monitored and decisions continue to be made. And for me, looking at all of this, it just confirms to me that, we made the right decision for us to go in and bring our son home, just because this whole situation is fluid. You just don't know, and weighing up the risks versus the rewards, we just felt like the risks outweighed the rewards, and that was the best call. And looking at the decisions now being made by these leagues and these clubs, I think it definitely seems to be trending in a direction where more and more of this is going to happen until the world gets a handle on this virus and the spread, the treatments, all of these aspects. And so, look, in the way that things are going right now, because it's just it's just a lot going on, and people are just going to have to. We're all going to have to adjust. The Champions League kicks off next round today again with Valencia with a home match, and so we'll see how that plays out. Liverpool hosting Atletico Madrid tomorrow. PSG hosting Dortmund tomorrow. There's just a lot of things going on. Red Bull Leipzig hosting Tottenham today. Looking at where this is going, and we haven't even really gotten into this thing really spreading, to where it's doing things in even like South America. For example, like Boca Juniors has a big Copa Libertadores match tonight, and so Montreal and Olympia in the CONCACAF Champions League. How does this, if it reaches the Americas in a big way, how does that begin to affect what's going on there? So there's just a lot of things to monitor, and I don't envy any of those people who are deal tells you that they're taking this serious and they're trying to do their best for everyone involved, and so hats off to them. Real Madrid lost this weekend, and the weekend before was a really bad weekend for me. Liverpool's streak ended with Watford. That was a horrible day. Next day, the Clasico. Real Madrid, in a lot of ways against the run of play, pulled out a victory in the Clasico. Miserable day. It was just a bad weekend for me with those two teams just struggling. And Liverpool began to kind of find themselves this weekend and kind of get back on the right path with a 2-1 victory. Hopefully that starts to build some more positive momentum for them as they kind of go forward, because they've got this big test coming up against Atletico Madrid this week in the Champions League on Wednesday and tomorrow, and to see how that plays out. Barcelona next week, but Real Madrid losing this weekend has put the title chase back in control of Barcelona. And if you're Barcelona and you go into the season and you are scoreless against Real Madrid in 2 matches, you lose at the Bernabeu and you draw at home, and you still have the league in your hands, you'll take it. But what does that really say about these two clubs? What does that really say about what's going on in La Liga? Where's the level at, especially with these two clubs? And I would say that they'll work their way through the rest of the season. I think Barcelona's got every reason, if you're a supporter, to think that they're going to have another hiccup between now and the end of the season in terms of the league. I don't think for a second Real Madrid is out of the control of the league, or they're out of the control at the moment, but out of the picture of winning the league by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be an interesting, next couple of months to kind of see how this thing plays out and see if Barcelona is able to retain, their La Liga crown, or if Real Madrid is able to wrestle it away. But the one thing you did not want to do if you're Real Madrid after winning the big match, the big Clásico the week before, is to lay an egg the next weekend and give it right back to Barcelona, and they did. And so we'll see. We'll see how things play out over the next couple months, but I don't expect a lot from either team. And going forward for this season, just not fully clicking at either club. And it's just, like I said, Barcelona's a mess still, and I don't think it's going to get fixed anytime in the next few weeks, even though I like the way they're trying to play a lot more than what they were doing under Valverde. Still not there. Still personnel-wise not there. And so this summer's going to be a very interesting summer for Barcelona, and I think Real Madrid's just, it's just the margins for Barcelona are so thin. Real Madrid, to me, should be, at least 6, 7, 8 points clear of this Barcelona. And the fact that they're not is, if I'm a Real Madrid supporter, would be a little frustrating, to be honest. But it is going to be a race that I think is going to play out to the end. It could come down to the very last match of the season, because I don't see any La Liga club or either of these two clubs being able to separate themselves from each other. I think it's going to stay close and play itself out as we go along. So, speaking of playing things out, Charity Water does this better than most when it comes to their work. They created a scenario in the very beginning where if you give $100, $100 goes to the mission. They raise all of their support staff funding separately. So you can choose to help them with that if you want to. But if you just want to give to the mission and not to office space or to salary to run the organization, if you don't want to spend time on any of that and you just want your money to go to providing clean drinking water to people around the world, you can do that. And that's one of the great.
We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Now, you could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.
A little bit about where we are as a country in American soccer. My observations of being able to travel around the country and take in different levels of the sport and what different communities are doing to support the growth of the sport, to see the dedication and the commitment of so many around this country to build the sport. I look at all of that and then look at our federation, and it's just it's disappointing. It's frustrating to see a federation that just doesn't seem to be able to fully wrap its head and its heart around fully serving the game. It doesn't matter whether it's the U.S. women's national team and their fight for equal pay and equal support and equal treatment. It doesn't matter whether it's clubs around this country that just want a chance, they just want an opportunity. It doesn't matter whether it's just a player and they're just trying to find a way to develop and get better and reach their own potential. And they need the access. They need the opportunity to do so. It doesn't matter whether it's a coach trying to figure out how do I better myself in an education standpoint? How do I better myself from a licensing standpoint? Regardless, across this country, there are so many that are invested in this game that want to see the game reach its potential. They want to see American soccer become what they see on TV. And honestly, there's no reason why it can't. And there's no reason why it can't do that. We want to become the greatest soccer country on earth. And we will not stop until we get there. But that's not the message we hear. It's not the message we read. When we follow the sport and we watch media covering the sport here in this country, when you listen to interviews and watch interviews of leading officials from the federation or other leagues, you rarely hear anyone speak boldly about American soccer. Yeah, they talk about growing the sport. Yeah, they talk about growing their league, reaching new metrics here. But all of it's measured. All of it is incremental. All of it seems to me to be purposefully lowered expectations, smaller vision. I want to see boldness from our federation, boldness from our leaders, boldness from clubs and leagues. I'd rather crash and burn than not try at all. If you want to build something great, you are going to fail. And you are going to fail repeatedly. Success does not come easy. It doesn't matter whether you are to make accessible coaching licenses and coaching education so that we had thousands upon thousands of educated and licensed coaches. Not a few. I wish we had a federation that refused to stop trying to provide opportunity and access. They refused. They had a will that would not be denied, that everyone would come together. Everyone would link together. Right now, we have so much that is out of order, so much that is disconnected, separated into silos, personal agendas, paychecks, financial fortunes. People say, well, change can't come. You can't force this change. U.S. Soccer is a member-controlled organization. If the voters and the members want change, it can eventually happen. But it's going to require the athlete council and the professional council and the adult, amateur, and youth council to make American soccer the greatest soccer country on earth, and we will not stop until we get there, and that means everyone in it together. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I keep looking for. And when I go to places like San Diego this weekend, it only fuels that passion even more to see that play out. If it can happen there, and it can happen in New Mexico, and it can happen in Vegas, it can happen in Chattanooga, and it can happen in Detroit, and I can go on and on and on and on. It can happen in your neighborhood. And I want to see everyone have that same opportunity to see American soccer reach its potential right where we are. That is the show for today. Thanks for watching. As always, you can watch on Bega TV. You can watch on Facebook.com/WRKMN. You can also watch on Twitter live at the moment and at DanielWorkman.com. Thanks for following the show. Catch me on Twitter or Instagram at Daniel Workman. We will see everyone again tomorrow. Goodbye.